SUNY Oswego's Imagine 2021 program. This interview is part of the Week 3 programming revolving around the theme of Imagine Becoming a LinkedIn Superhero. My name is Lila Ijaz, and I'm a current MBA student, and I will be graduating this year. And here I'm joined by Oswego alumni member, Amber Lennon-Harmon, class of 2010. Thanks for joining us, Amber. So to jump right in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here. So my name is Amber Lennon-Harmon. I am a Long Island, New York native. We do have that already in common. Class of 2010, SUNY Oswego. I definitely need to go back and visit. I need this pandemic to calm down so I can go back and visit. But currently, I live in North Carolina. I have been here since 2014. The years have flown by, and I work at UNC Chapel Hill, specifically in their Keenan Flagler School of Business. And day to day, I work with undergraduate business school programs. So I am working with undergraduate students who are pursuing their bachelor's in business administration, helping them navigate all things career related. And I have been doing this since 2010 when I graduated from SUNY Oswego. So special shout out to the Campus Center in SUNY Oswego. You gave me my start. That's actually how I met Lila. We found out via email that we actually met each other, and I remembered your name. I couldn't remember where. So thank you so much to Gary and to Christy and Alyssa, who definitely gave me my start in career development as a junior, which is so crazy that, an internship kind of landed me here to where I am now. So super excited to be here.
That is really fascinating, Amber, and I love that we met previously during a time of when I was an undergrad at LIU Post, and I went to career services, and I met you, and you were a wonderful career counselor, and you helped me so much with, because I was an undeclared major at the time as a freshman, and you helped me so much with understanding majors and understanding, what are the career fields and possible career fields within different majors, and you also helped me explore like what my interests are, what are my passions, helping with personality tests. And what advice would you give to students regarding career exploration, and in your time as a career counselor, what are some advice you can give?
Sure. And I think this kind of goes clearly to what we're talking about today about LinkedIn. And the biggest thing is knowing who you are. So of course, when you graduate from high school, one of the first things you hear is, so what do you want to do? What are you majoring in? And these are such big questions. And I think it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable and knowing that as a freshman, and honestly, being very serious, as a senior in college, you may not know what you want to do, and understanding that that's okay. And I think there's just this big unspoken pressure that you have to know exactly what it is. And I think what this pandemic has taught us and what life teaches us is that you have to be agile, and understanding that, like thinking about it, when I was in college, social media was up and coming, but I didn't see that as an actual career. Now in 2021, you can have a full career as an influencer on social media. You can be a social media manager. So I think just being open to different experiences, but I think at the very basis is being authentic and knowing exactly who you are, which obviously we worked together when you were in school to take those different assessments to find out, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I enjoy? What energizes me? What brings me, happiness? Because all of that is important. And I would say, especially now, and I know we were talking before offline about like just being energized and some of the things that you like, I get energy off of working with students. So being at home, obviously you can tell, is a difference because it's not the same. I can't, just kind of, go and get coffee with the student, but being able to connect, if it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is, that still kind of brings that joy throughout, my day.
That is really wonderful. I love everything you said. I actually was taking down some notes in between, and I love what you were saying about, being able to adapt, keeping up with the latest trends and patterns in the career world, and being open to, new possibilities, because that is so true that, sometimes we get so stuck on one thing, but we don't actually examine different opportunities, different paths. And exactly. I love what you mentioned about COVID-19 too, because I feel like this year, or it's last year, has been a huge time for introspection, yes. Spending time with yourself, learning about yourself, getting to know yourself better, your interests. And I think a lot of people right now, with everything that's going on in the world, I think people are reflecting on what makes us happy. What do we like?
Yes.
Because you know, it's like when the external world you can't control, but you know, your life you can have a little bit of control over, and you want to make decisions that you feel good with and you feel comfortable with. And it is scary, I feel like, you know, figuring out what do you want to do for the rest of your life. But I love how you mentioned you really need to know yourself. You need to know your strengths, your weaknesses, and just use your natural talents, use your natural gifts, and figure out which career field or which majors would suit you the most. And I've actually been working with the career services department at SUNY Oswego for the last
Awesome.
2-3 weeks. And
Okay.
I joined, you know, SUNY Oswego's Imagine 2021 program because I was really curious to learn more about, you know, my personal development, professional development. I wanted to know more about what are some other things I should know regarding to personal and professional development, and just learning, you know, even working with career counselors like at Tycho and also Christy from the career service at SUNY Oswego. They helped me. Like I took all the personality tests like last week. I did the Myers-Briggs again. I did the strengths and ProQuest and like
Okay.
different assessments and the strong assessment. So I love that they had different options available so you could like learn more about yourself and your professionally your interests. So definitely I feel like my biggest advice as well for students is like take the time to meet with career counselors. You know, they help guide you, and I love that. I really love that they help guide you, and I love the advice you gave as well because that's just so important. And like for example, you said you love working with students, and so that's something that you picked a field as a career counselor in higher education administration to do that. So I also want to ask you more questions. So tell me more about your current position and the company you work for, and what do you love most about your job, and what energizes you the most about your job as well?
Sure. So I work for the undergraduate business program at Keenan Flagler School of Business, which is a part of UNC Chapel Hill here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Go Tar Heels. And basically what I do on a day-to-day basis is everything from, you know, helping students who are at the place of exploration. So kind of sort of like yourself going back to, you know, like, what am I interested in? I think the biggest thing now that I work at a business school is that now we're looking more so at functions of business. So I'm not necessarily in liberal arts and visual and performing arts like I was before. So I'm working primarily with students who are interested in things like marketing, operations, corporate finance, investment banking. And the interesting thing was it was a learning curve for me. So when I first started working there in 2019, I had to learn all things business. So learning what investment banking really is and learning about case interviews and consulting. So that was definitely something I would say that energized me the most, is because I am a learner. So that was really exciting to just kind of like go and jump deep into like learning all about, you know, consulting and, you know, what should students expect? Because my biggest thing, you know, in my field of career development is making sure that I am aware of the trends, what's changing, how can I prepare students so that they can launch their journeys and kind of get the jobs and the internships that they want. And a big part of that was me soaking up, you know, so much information. But I would say overall, is students, is helping. So this is energizing to me today to know that I am reconnecting with a student that I met when she was in college, and I was a new, you know, professional. So things like this make me really excited, and just kind of like looking back at how many students I've actually interacted with. And I had an appointment about 2 hours ago, and at the end she was like, "Oh my gosh, this was so helpful. Thank you so much for your help." And knowing that I'm making a difference. It may not, you know, and seeing my impact. That's something that makes me really excited about getting up each day. And honestly, it really helps me get through the days with COVID-19. Knowing that I'm in the house, it's not necessarily as much as I would like to do. So that's what gives me that energy, is knowing that I'm going to have a chance to, you know, make an impact, even if it is virtually.
You know, I can honestly tell you, I really appreciate, you know, all of Tycho's help and Christy's help and your help when I saw you at LIU and countless other career counselors I've seen at LIU and other places. But I will say, you guys are amazing at helping students, like guiding them. And I feel like students go away, I feel like students are nervous to take the first step sometimes. But once, like, I was nervous before meeting Tycho, before meeting Christy, and even, you know, meeting Stephanie today. I was so nervous, but I'm so happy that I took the step, I took initiative, because I know they're there, like you were there to help us, help students. So
Yes.
I'm so glad to have that as a resource on campus. It is, you know, very stressful. And even like you mentioned, you know, you had gotten an internship at SUNY Oswego. So, you know, what advice would you give to students regarding internships or starting out like the first career field that, possible interest?
Sure, definitely. I would say one is what you already mentioned is really just taking that first step, and understanding that rejection is a real thing. And not every internship and not every job you're not going to land them, but you have to take that first step. Like you have to. And once you get the strength to take that first step, and find an internship, there are times where your internship is not the most glamorous. Like I remember when I was an intern, we had to staff the career fairs, and it was a lot that was going on. That may not have been my most favorite thing, but I took a lot from that experience. So it's going back to what I said earlier about being open and really having that time to do some self-reflection, thinking about your experiences. What did you enjoy? What you didn't enjoy? What brought you energy? Because it all tells a part of your story, especially when it comes time for an interview. You can think back, okay, so when I interned here, what did I like? What didn't I like? Let me think about, this time where I had conflict. How can I talk about that and show them, this is what I've learned and this is how I can apply this in the future. So much that you can learn. I am pro internships. I am an internship advocate. So if you have an opportunity to get an internship, make sure that you take advantage of it, and just understand that it's just taking a step. So that's another misconception, is that if you get this one internship, this means you have to go into this field. That is so not true, especially in today's society. I mean, like years ago, if you were a nurse, you retired as a nurse. Now you can start off as a nurse, but let's say that now, I'm interested in business because I want to translate and I want to do management in a hospital or in a healthcare facility. So there's so much that you can do with it, and understanding that you change and grow and develop as a professional, and having those conversations with career development counselors, or honestly doing self-reflection, helps you really kind of stay ahead of that curve.
I 100% agree with all of your feedback. That is really great feedback. And I also want to add in there that 2 questions that Taiko had asked me, my career counselor at SUNY Oswego, the week before. She asked me 2 questions I loved, because I was asking her based on, my personality, what are some career guidance or advice she can give me, or which path does she think I should pursue? And I love that she didn't tell me which career paths I should pursue, but she asked me 2 questions. And I love these questions. I would recommend it to everybody to think about. Is she asked me, in your previous jobs, what are some things that you liked doing? Mm-hmm. Then she asked me, okay, so what things would you like to do in a future job or a future career, or the one that you want to pursue? And all I thought about was not the job title or job position or job salary. Those are the first things that usually come to our head. But this was actually thinking about, what do you like doing? What interests you that you've already done? What are your strengths that you enjoyed, or your talents? Mm-hmm. And then what are some activities that you would like to do in the future? And for me, that was, talking, communicating, writing, reading. I like presenting. So I thought about, and I like leading, I like managing. And I love working with people as well. And I also like working independently. So I had to think about, some of those things. And then I thought about, okay, so what are some jobs that I can use my strengths or talents accordingly? And then that actually helped me make it more clear which career paths are easier or better for me based on that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know Taiko, but Taiko, it sounds like you're an MVP. So I like you already.
Yeah, and Christy helped me so much with the Myers-Briggs and just helping me understand the different letters behind. I love that every time, like, you take a personality test at SUNY Oswego, they send you the link to take the test, but then they say, follow up with me and set an appointment so we can discuss your results. And that really helps clarify so much, because it's a little bit overwhelming at first. There's lots of information. So I like that. Christy helped me so much with understanding that, and understanding my personality and the letters, and helping identify possible, options for me and opportunities, or which just helping me understand myself better. Because it's we're so busy in our day-to-day life with duties and goals and responsibilities, and I feel like we don't get to focus on ourselves so much. I'm like you said, introspection is so important. Pandemic times, taking that time to reflect, so important, and identifying your strengths and going with that. Yeah. So, yeah. So, okay. So I want to ask you the next question. Okay. Of all the social media platforms out there, where does LinkedIn rank in terms of importance for career development and moving forward professionally, and why?
Sure. So LinkedIn is definitely, in my mind, at the top of the list. I think for a number of reasons. One, there's so much that you can do. So of course, it's big on connection. So making sure that you connect with alums, connect with, previous colleagues. But now I think now, especially kind of pulling in the fact that you can post your own content. For students, you can post your projects, and professors now are getting more active, and faculty members are sharing some of the work that their students are doing. You can read articles. Definitely staying in touch with your industry or fields of interest, I think, is important. And then of course the big thing, jobs. So understanding that you have so much access to different jobs, not only in your city and state, but anywhere that you're looking for. And then lastly, I think the big thing is, it definitely helps recruiters. So a lot of recruitment is done virtually. So they may be looking to hire for a particular, position within their organization. So being able to go on LinkedIn and just say, okay, let me do a quick search of who's looking for a job, that makes things so much easier. So I think now it really kind of helps you understand how important your brand is and understanding who you are as a professional. So I think LinkedIn is definitely on the top of the list. And it's something that it takes some time to kind of develop your own kind of rhythm, because there are obviously, just like with any type of social media, there are people that are on it all day, every day. I don't think that's a requirement. It's really based upon, again, your lifestyle, what you're looking for, and your personality and your brand development. So I think that LinkedIn is great. It's one of the social media sites that has been out before Instagram or Facebook. It's just that now I think more people are, used to it. And, really quickly, I would say, before, when I was doing resume reviews, you always had to have your name, your email address, your mailing address. Now I always tell students, is your LinkedIn on your resume? Like, make sure that it's there so that they can make sure that they connect with you and look you up before they move forward with the process.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My cat is just wanting to get
The
by.
joys of working from home.
He wants to show itself. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, the joys of working from home.
So sorry. Okay. Yeah.
No
Exactly.
problem.
So it's like it wants my attention. It's like, it's like my attention somewhere else. It's like, why isn't she giving me attention? I'm meowing.
Exactly.
Sorry about that. I was listening. Okay, so I love your feedback, and I want to ask you more about this. So
Sure.
tell me about, in your opinion, how important is a person's LinkedIn profile, and what do you think separates a good profile from a great profile?
Great question. So the first thing I would say is, a brand is a kind of commitment to an experience. So for instance, if I, were to put on the screen a check mark, you would think about Nike. And if I was purchasing a pair of Nike sneakers, I have the expectation of an experience because this is the brand. And I would say on LinkedIn, this is the start of your professional brand, but it's virtual. So knowing now that at this point, anytime you apply for a job, a scholarship, anything, people are going to do a social media check. And especially with Google, if you have not done a Google search on yourself, make sure that you do that. One of the first things that will probably pop up will be your LinkedIn. So understanding that is so important to your brand and who you are, and really kind of understanding what you want to communicate to potential employers, to potential colleagues. That's one of the first things I would say.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because
Sure.
I actually wanted more clarification on this, and I don't know if I hope it'll help other students as well. But can employers actually see because you said social media, can they see your Facebook and Instagram even if it's private?
So that is a great question. So there are actual positions within organizations where their job is to do social media background checks. So even though you may think, or your settings may be private, let's just say that if it has been posted on the internet, there is a way for someone to find it. So my biggest piece of advice is to do a social media background check and to look and see what pictures have been tagged about you, like on Facebook, being conscious of what you post. And I think that's one of the things where it always is a gray line of, obviously there's such a thing as freedom of speech. and I am an advocate. Yes, express yourself, you know, post whatever content, but also understand that when you join an organization, you not only represent yourself as a person, you represent your family, you represent your friends, but now you represent this organization. So me right now, I represent UNC Chapel Hill, I represent Keenan Flagler, I represent SUNY Oswego, I represent LIU Post, I represent myself, and I represent my family. And there's so much that goes with that, which is why it is important to know your skills, know your values when you are creating this brand, because you want it to be consistent. So by day, I may be a career development counselor. My brand is consistent whether I'm here or whether I'm out eating sushi. Like, you are going to have the same type of Amber experience, but you're just going to learn about different parts of myself depending upon the setting and depending upon the conversation. But great question.
I think that is such amazing feedback, and thank you so much for offering that insight, because I think that's something that a lot of people just don't know, and that's really great for students to be more aware of. And
Sure.
so can you tell me more about, so for example, many students have started a LinkedIn profile, but a lot of people struggle to make it work for them. What advice would you give to students so that they can take the next step to enhance their professional brand and develop meaningful relationships on LinkedIn?
Sure. So one, I think, and I will say this a million times, it all goes back to you as a person. And when it comes to connections, I think there is a misconception, like, I need to connect with every single person and I need to have conversations with every single person. And that's not true. I'm also really big on vibes. So when you meet people, understanding their energy, understanding the purpose behind connecting. So of course it is great because you never know where life is going to land you. Like, who would have thought that we would have come back together? But you want to think about, you know, the connections you do have and the time that it takes to develop these meaningful connections. So I think when it is, and you know, I too struggle with it as well. And I think that goes with everything, you know, for anyone that does something professionally, sometimes it's harder to take your own advice because you're giving it every single day. But I would definitely say when it comes to LinkedIn and really finding out your lane is to be authentic and to be yourself. And when it comes to making those connections is really kind of thinking, you know, where are you in your career journey? Where are you in your professional journey? And what type of connections do you need? You may not be in the market, you know, for looking for another job, but maybe it is that you're looking to tap into a new hobby or a new interest. So those connections are going to change. When you are looking for a job, traditionally, you're going to be making connections with recruiters and, you know, finding out about timelines and finding out about opportunities. But there comes a time, especially when you get further along your professional journey, that you're really just needing connections so that you can have some really rich and robust conversations so that you can learn more about yourself and that you can excel in your own professional journey. So I think it's really just about finding balance and understanding that it shouldn't be a task. Like, and if it feels like it's a task, then you need to kind of figure out, you know, what is it that you can spend more time on? Maybe you're a really great creative. Share your content. Like, there's so many things, you know, that I wish I was able to do, and I can't. That's just not something I'm good at. I would love to be able to draw, not something I'm really good at, but tap into your creative side and share that with the world. And sometimes it's really about, you know, commenting, publishing some of your work, and really just kind of starting those conversations and making those connections. And I think that's what makes the difference between, you know, a good profile, which means you just answered all the questions, and a great profile, meaning that you took some time to think about who you are authentically, and making sure that you communicate that, you know, with your connections that you do have.
That is really great feedback. I love it. So I want to ask you, when you were a college student or after you were a college student, you graduated, did you ever have mentors of any kind, or did you connect with the alumni network before or after you completed your schooling?
Yes, great question. So I would say I've had a number of mentors. Again, just have to shout out the compass. So Bob Casper was one of my faves, as well as Gary and Christy and Alyssa. So I thought of them as mentors in different aspects. And then of course, you know, thinking about, you know, faculty members that you stay in contact with. So I think you should have mentors in different kind of sectors. I think faculty members also are great, especially if you're into education. I'm pursuing my EDD in higher education executive leadership. So faculty members were very important. And I will shout out Dr. Morton, who was one of my mentors in SUNY Oswego. I was a Ronald McNair scholar. So now that I actually am getting ready for my dissertation, I reached out to her on LinkedIn and I'm like, hey, Dr. Morton, I'm at the point where I'm getting ready to do my dissertation. I need help. So being able to have different people at different levels that you can just have conversations with. Sometimes it's a matter of just like encouragement and sharing those types of, kind of stories where, everyone has not been successful their entire lives. Like, it's a lot of bumps in the roads. And I always tell students, you may graduate thinking that you're going to go directly from A to Z, but you're going to go from A to Z and then back to D. You're going to travel to L, then go back somewhere else. So being open to those experiences is really important, but most importantly, it is great to have mentors to kind of help you through that process. So yes, if you do not have a mentor, definitely one of the things to look out for. And that's a great way to kind of look into your connections on LinkedIn, is if you are in a place where you need a mentor in your fields of interest, or just in general, someone that you can just bounce ideas off of and receive encouragement and things like that.
That is wonderful advice. I love it. So tell me, last question, what 3 concrete activities can our listeners accomplish in the next 24 hours to really move forward with LinkedIn?
Great question. 3 things. Number 1, I would say, get to know yourself. And literally this, in 24 hours, you can get to know yourself. Really quick, what you can do is take a sheet of paper, a notebook, write down the things that you know about yourself that you consider to be your strength, that you consider to be energizing, that you value, because that's really going to help you kind of create like your summary and help you create, your tagline. So if you take the time to just write down a few things that you value about yourself, that you know that you're good at, that is the first step that I would say. Number 2, I would suggest kind of looking over the profile you do have now on LinkedIn, looking at your headshot, looking at your tagline, taking the time to kind of update any content that you have posted. And then number 3, I would say to do kind of a cleanup of your connection, because you never know who you met, or, there are times when you connect with someone during an internship, you haven't reconnected, and they could be a really great source of information. So I would say number 3 would be to do a cleanup. So go through your connections, see who you're connected with, understanding that you may have connected with them 3 years ago. They're probably in a whole different space. So it could be really cool to kind of catch up with them and see where they are. And of course, kind of going back to number 1, understanding what your purpose is. So that is really going to drive how you develop your brand, how you communicate your brand, and most importantly, how you utilize LinkedIn. So if I had to do 3, those would be my top 3.
I love it. This has been so helpful. And I just want to tell you that this has been really awesome. I've really enjoyed this. And I love everything you mentioned about learning more about yourself, reflecting and taking the time to do introspection, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and finding your purpose. I love that. That was great.
Yes.
And really thinking about, what would you enjoy doing? What do you want to do? What is your natural gifts or talents that you want to contribute to the world? And learning more about what you love to do. And I loved how you also mentioned the tidbit about, having your LinkedIn URL link on your resume. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that before, and I like that. And I also love how you mentioned to be more aware of your social media content, because that is, I've always heard, like, if it's private, like, how can employers see that? But that's interesting what you mentioned. There's always like
there's a way around it.
Yeah, there's always like a backlog link of everything we posted and then content, so I can imagine there must be a way to employers can search all that. And
exactly.
yeah, and I love your passion. I love your energy. I love your learning, your love of learning. That's great. That really, I think, is the key to success, in my opinion, just being able to love to learn, because no matter what fields you pursue, you have to learn so much and you have to train so much. And so that's really great. And I love that you love connecting with others, and, you offered so much great advice for that. And I love your great vibes and your great personality. I love learning about all your experiences and your advice for others. So thank you so much, Amber, for sharing your time and knowledge with our Laker family at SUNY Oswego. It was a pleasure interviewing you. Thank you for all of your insight. And do you have any last words that you want to add here?
Sure. One, I would say thank you so much for having me. This has been super awesome, a great break in my day before I get into my afternoon of meetings. But the last thing I would say is understand that you are the driver of your brand, and understand that it's important to be authentic. So take the time to get to know yourself, who you are, and most importantly, being big on energy. Understand what energizes you, and that is going to be what takes you to the next level. So again, so glad that I was able to participate in this interview, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say also thank you so much to everyone who's watched this program, and thank you for tuning in. I hope that you'll continue to tune in into more Imagine 2021 programming this winter break in order to learn more about enhancing your professional development. So take care, everyone. And thanks again, Amber. Thank you so very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.